we're going to want to start a new project. So do a file, new, and then project. If Visual C# isn't selected, then go ahead and select it. And then we want to choose our console app again, the .NET framework. You can give it a name if you want.
Console app framework. What are we going to be turning this in?
Not this one, no.
Okay. I'll just name it delete later.
Oftentimes, I will name things I want to delete. I'll have a DEL in them, so I can easily find them.
You just type in the search bar DEL.
Right. Because if you come back 6 months from there, I'm looking at it, it's like, do I want to keep that?
Yeah.
So,
I think there's a website called Should I Delete This?
oh,
And you Google like whatever it is, and it'll tell you it's like what it comes from, the manufacturer, like what product came with it.
yeah.
Because usually if you install like Battlefield 1 off of Origin, it'll add all of this like anti-cheat software, and it doesn't tell you like this comes with Battlefield 1. It just automatically installs it. So you're going through your files, and it's like, when did I install this? You don't know whether you should delete it or not.
Oh.
All weird.
Now, we're going to do a console.writeLine. And say good morning. And then I'll do another console write line. How are you doing? Another console write line. Why is he doing so many console write lines? I actually want that to print 10 times. So I'm going to edit copy that. Okay, maybe not 10. Let's say 3. I'm going to paste it. There we go. Now let's go ahead and run this. So do a debug. Start without debugging. Good morning, how you doing? Why is he doing so many console write lines? Good morning, how you doing? Why is he doing so many console write lines? So forth. So it prints what we'd expect, right?
Right.
So go ahead and press enter on that. Now up here, I'm going to type public void and display lines. And then I'm going to do a beginning print or beginning curly bracket, closing curly bracket, like this. This is called by different names in different programming languages. Functions, procedures, subroutines. There's a whole slew of names this is given. They all perform a similar feature, or similar task, I should say. They all have similar features. I originally said we're going to do these 10 times. Well, we don't want to do those on 10 times. What we're going to do is we're going to take one set of those 3 and we're going to move it up here to our display lines.
How do you move it?
I highlighted it and then I clicked and held down my left mouse button and dropped it. Now, if you want mice, I do have a few mice if you hate that touchpad. Would it? Okay. I absolutely can't stand those. I'll pick up some more cheap ones this weekend.
I have one, so I forget to grab it anymore. Dude, ever since I bought a wireless one, I have not grabbed it. I don't want to switch back to a straight one. But it's expensive. I bought it for 1 millisecond response times. That changed. Hey, look, I was trying to explain to you. This is the ones. Oh wait. Okay, see, click it that time. It's really, really slow now. Hit once. It's fast now. Change the DPI. Which stands for? I don't remember. It's just how fast they're quick now. Having errors for some reason. Where's my glasses? Dutch branch. So
I need a beginning curly bracket.
Basically,
for the display lines. So go to the end of that, after right there. Press enter. And do a beginning curly bracket. Or then get rid of this. That's there. And now you're going to want to move these 3 lines, so edit, copy, and then paste.
yes, you don't copy, you just drag. Well, everything go. What you gotta do. Alright, now exactly the same. Except mine's black. That's racist. It close. I forgot it does that.
Okay, so then I get rid of all these console write lines down here. And instead of writing those,
Now I have to turn back on my computer.
I'm going to call display lines.
It shuts down my computer when you do that. Why? I don't know, it's just automatically set. I haven't changed it yet. What if they have a return application to their former state thing?
Except for it doesn't like something. That's interesting.
Yeah.
How about private? How about void?
An object reference is required for the non-static field method or property.
That's interesting. Huh. Well, I'm doing what it says to tell me to. Put static up there. I've used public before, but I suppose it's because we're in a class. Is the difference. What public means is that you can access it from anywhere. Private means you can only access it from within that segment of code. So I'm not sure why public wasn't working, but
So we have to do
static.
Yeah.
And now if we run this, you do debug, start without debugging. You see it prints the three here. Now, originally I printed it 3 times, didn't I? So now I can type display lines over and over. Now what this is doing is when it hits this display lines down here, it's coming up here and calling this set of code up here. So it calls this and then does these 3 lines of code. And then when it's done, it returns back to my program down here. I think I talked about that I have a routine in the morning. Did I talk about that in this class? Yeah, and my brain automatically, when I wake up, calls that routine. It says, go to the bathroom, do your business, brush your teeth, shave, shower, dress, go get your flash drive. It's just like I'm like a robot in the morning. It doesn't vary. There's no variation on it. So that's the idea. Every morning, my brain calls that subroutine, that procedure, that method. Did we get that to work? How hard would it be then to call it 10 times? Easy. What the benefit of this is if you got a little bit of, or maybe not a little bit of code, but if you got code that you're gonna call in multiple places in your program, you write it in one place, and then you just call it from down here.
If we made both the top and bottom one public void, would it work then?
I wonder. It would. Let's see if that runs. Let's see. No.
If you hit yes, it just says it anyhow.
Yeah, yes runs your previous code that worked, not what you actually changed though. Okay. Well, let's say I want to write some code to calculate. Why do I still have an error? Go away. Let me run it. Okay, no more errors. Let's say I want to call something to calculate. I think we did interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So up here are the static void display lines. Actually, I'll just create a new subroutine method. Static void calculate interest. And I could ask him for the principal here and so forth, and there'd be nothing wrong with that. But up here, let's say I want to pass in the double interest is equal principal times rate times time. So let's see. Then down here, I'm going to declare double I, and I'm going to say I is equal to P times R times T. And then I'll do a console.write line. I'll do a console write. The interest is, and then I'll do a console.write line. And I'll print I. Now if I type calculate interest, and you start typing it, and the code completion comes up, and it actually tells me a little bit about it. It says void, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. And then it says program.calculate interest, double P, double R, double T. So if I do a tab, let me come and look. 2000.05, 0.05. Oh, did you figure it out?
Yeah.
Okay, 10. Am I going too fast? A little bit. I still hear a bunch of keys pressing. Now let's run it just to see what in the world it does. So I'm going to do a debug, start without debugging. 1,000. Does that seem right? 5% of 2,000. 5 times 2,000, 2,000 is 10,000. Take away 2 zeros. Okay, yeah, I guess that number would be right. Yeah, you have to call it down there. Now, what this is doing is when it hits this right here, calculate interest. It's coming up here. It's calling this, and then it's passing in 3 parameters. I think I gave the example the other day of parameters. Remember when I was talking about going up front and like getting me water or getting me mail? So I'm passing in a parameter, and that's what we're doing here. So we're passing in 2,000. So when this runs, it plugs 2,000 in for P. We're passing in 0.05, so it's plugging in 0.05 for R. And it's plugging 10 in for T. Then at that point, it's going through here, doing the same code as we saw in the last 2 classes. We're just calculating that and then print it out. When this last console write line is done here, it comes down, exits out, and hits this next line down here. Remember Xcode, where it had those different procedures, different subroutines, and it said what each one does? What the main program is doing is when you perform some kind of function on the iPhone, it's calling that method over there. So it's the same principle, but it's doing the calling for you. Is that good?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay. Now, instead of printing it here, what we could do is return it. This void, what that means is it means nothing's returned. We go off, do it, nothing comes back. If I put something in here like double, turn it back. Okay, that's fine. This tells us we're going to return something. So down here, instead of doing this console write line, and I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use it somewhere else, or I'll cut it. I'm going to do a return I. Now down here, maybe I'm going to calculate interest. So I'm going to declare interest. And now I'm going to say interest is equal to calculate interest. Now I'm going to paste that in. I'll say the interest is console.writeLine interest.
You're not implicitly converting void to double.
The what?
Mine says cannot implicitly convert the void to double.
Do you still have, do you have static double up here?
Oh no.
Okay. When you just put the return I there, it was trying to throw a double back to a void, which conflicts. So whatever variable type you're trying to return has to be specified up here where the void was. So if you return an integer, you put int there. If you're returning a string, you put string, and so forth. Now every programming language has this functionality. Clear back to the 1960s. So it'd be really hard to program some of the things you do in programming if you couldn't call these subroutines, these methods, these functions. They're called by numerous names in languages.
I have an error.
Let me see.
Oh. Oh, you have to interest equals calculate interest.
Oh, right there. Get it up there.
Mine from movable weight.
So now if we run that, debug start without debugging. It doesn't tell us anything exciting. It just tells us still the interest is 1,000. You get it?
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what would probably make our program more functional is if we would get these from the user. So I'm going to declare 3 new variables. I'll call it P, R, and T for double. And here I'm going to say console.writeLine. This program calculates simple interest. Then I'll say console.write input P. Now P is a double, so remember we have to do our double.parse. And then we're going to bring in console.readline. We want to bring in console write input R. And we do R is equal to double.parse. Console.readline. And console.write input T. And we'll say T is equal to double dot parse console.readline. Now instead of hard coding these values now, I'm going to put P here. I'm going to put R here. And I'll put T here. we're going to see with an app, you get these values a little bit differently. You don't get them directly from the user like that. You get them from fields. They put data on your app. And that brings it in. You still do the same thing. You call a subroutine in some way. You do the calculation and then return the result in some manner. Okay, so if I run this now, if I do a debug, start without debugging, comes up, good morning, how you doing? Why is you doing so many console write lines? This program calculates simple interest. It says input P. So if I put some value like 2050, says R, so if I put 0.05 T, I put 7 for 7 years, and then press enter. It'll come up and tell us the interest is 700.175. Ever get that to work okay? Now, this I you see up here, this is referred to as a local variable. Programming languages have different names for that. What that local variable is you can only use I within this piece of code right here. So if we're down here, for example, if I wanted to access I, so if I come down here and I did a console.writeLine I, oops. Notice here we get an error. It says the name I does not exist in the current context. That's because up here it's a local variable. Now the benefit of this is it doesn't use up much memory. You come down here, you declare it, it uses it while it's calculating, and then returns the memory to the computer or to the cell phone or whatever. Good programming practice is when you use methods like this that everything should be declared locally that you can, because again, it uses less memory. Now let me find a formula and I'll have you guys program it in. Need like a poster of physics formulas I can put up somewhere.
Yeah.
They're popular ones to choose.
You want us to create a new deal?
Yes. If you want to copy that off, take a picture of your phone so you know the general form of it. This is going to be follow the similar form. Now I'm going to have you program in this equation of motion here. This V is equal to V naught plus AT. And do it just like we just did the last one, where you pass in the parameters, where you turn.
Equations of motion.
Now that V naught is just a variable, so like VO. I'll take attendance while you're doing that. Okay, well, I'm recording. Never mind.
So will we do the display lines too instead of the main string? Or
Oh, you don't need to display lines. That was just a show an example.
What does V stand for?
I don't know. Velocity, I think.
So is that a zero or the second V or what's that?
You can use a zero. The variable name should be like VO or V0. Either one. I think the V naught, the VO you see there, is initial velocity. So I think it's velocity is equal to initial velocity plus acceleration times time.
so we'll do VO, A, and T.
VO plus A times T.
That equals V.
That equals V. That's for drop rocks. Just like before, once you get it working, Take your code, edit, copy it, paste it into a Word document, and upload Word document.
Okay.
I'll get that fixed on Friday, tomorrow. I know the simple fix. I just don't want to do the simple fix. Because when I'm showing people how to do compressed folders, I'd like compressed folders to actually work on this computer instead of having to install pzip anytime you want to ever do any compressing.
Did we say velocity? This is a program that calculates velocity.
Yes.
It would be motion, not velocity. It does. You know it does. Something's wrong. I don't know what.
The what?
Something's wrong. I don't know what.
Let's see.
Something like the V. You don't have to V declared here. You got to declare it up here, but that's a local variable. You can't access that in your main program.
Having an error?
Now I'm looking at. Do they have a calculate motion thing on here, or do you just have to?
You just type it in.
Yeah, it's whatever name you want to call it. Now, it does have some restrictions on naming convention. Like this right here, you can't have any spaces in it. You can't start with a number. Probably can't have commas, semicolons, so forth.
Understand.
They, it keeps doing this. Stop doing access violation exception.
It's not gonna listen to you.
Every time, try to do regular A. Regular old A does access violation exception.
Oh, you gotta put a double before it.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Is it? Am I doing this right so far? Am I doing this?
So if I try to click in
It's right, so far.
a game bracket, and I'm sorry.
I know.
Token.
You don't want a semicolon at the end of that. Yeah.
Would V also be double?
I would go ahead and just make everything double just to be on the safe side. Typically, you wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to think about whether something should be in a double or an integer. The reason why is to take less memory. Say everything's a double just is overkill.
Okay, so my calculate motion is right.
Let's see. Calculate motion. Oh yeah, look, there's. Now you wouldn't need to bring in P on this problem.
Oh.
And you wouldn't need to bring in B either, because that's what you're calculating. That's why it's got a R up above. The B there.
Would I make V velocity down here and just leave this? Or do they need to be the same? Because in that last one we did I and then interest.
Where are you pointing to?
Right here, what I need to do is V and then
No,
velocity.
you wouldn't want B up there because you're calculating B, so you're gonna return that. So that's only your parameters you're passing in.
So I don't want this.
You don't want B. You get rid of that comma after the T. There you go. Now you need to declare B with increase, and you need to do a double B.
And then down here, do I make this V velocity?
That's up to you. They can be different. It can be the same.
I'll keep it as B.
I tend to get in a bad habit of making the variable in the main program the same as what I'm referring to above, but it doesn't have to be.
I'll do plus.
It's a bad habit to get into because then people think that it has to match, no matter what.
No. Okay. And put is bow mode like what would bow be?
That's your initial velocity, I believe.
Is acceleration. It would 35. The okay. I got it.
Yeah. And once you get that, go ahead and upload it to Blackboard. Put in the Word and go through all that.
Yeah.
So it says that name B is on this. Maybe you gotta also.
I need something different.
Variable names are tricky. I used to probably still, probably not. They probably don't have any of my code around anymore. But I drove my old manager crazy on that because I named everything as the sales, the cost, the whatever. And there was a reason for that. I once declared a variable name that was a reserved word. reserved word is like a statement, a word you're not supposed to use because it's used in the actual programming language. And since I had used it, it gave me weird results. It took me forever to figure out what I'd done wrong. And so then I got to the point where anything that potentially could be a reserved word, like some, I'll say the sum, and so forth, just to make sure I don't collide.
Did you get the other thing uploaded? Oh, there we go. It
Yeah.
didn't show up to me at first. Is it simple, interesting use methods?
Right. That's actually called a method in this language.
Is this, do we need to upload the interest one or the motion one?
Oh, I did say it.
I was really confused with wait.
It should be motion. Upload your motion one. Sorry. I'll wake up here eventually.
Same here.
Motion using methods.
I just uploaded my full Visual Studio.
Oh, yeah, because you're able to zip yours up. Everybody good? JC? What?
Did you get it?
Are you good? The what?
I don't. I'm waiting. Oh, you're signing.
Oh, you're signing. Okay.
Now, after you get that uploaded, go ahead and do a file, new project. And we're going to do a console app.
Is this are
Right.
we uploading this one as well?
No, we're not going to upload this one. Now I'm going to do a console write line and say this program will add 1 through 10. Now I'm going to declare a variable called the sum. And then I'll say the sum is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. Why is it like that? Sign, but value is never used. Oh, okay. And then I'll print out the results. Console.writeLine. The sum from 1 to 10 is, though I guess console write might be more appropriate. And then I'll do console write line the sum. Now if I run that, do a debug, start without debugging. Tells me the sum from 1 to 10 is 55. Guess that's true. So this computer told me. Now, as a project for you, how about if I change this to a 1,000? Could you do it?
Yeah, I'm so wrong for right now.
I'll let everybody get caught up first. Yeah, if I ever start going too fast, just holler at me and say, hey, slow down.
Now we need to change it to 1,000.
Yeah, if I was going to tell you to do that as a project, could you do that? Yeah. How about if I change this to 100,000?
Take a long time, but yeah.
Take a long time, right? Not very efficient to sit there and type all those numbers out. Well, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to declare the sum 2, a different variable. And I'm going to initialize it to 0. And we're going to see why here in a little bit. I'm going to have a for int x equals 1, continue while x is less than or equal to 10, x plus plus. And I'm going to say the sum 2 is equal to the sum 2 plus x. And then down here, I'm going to do my console write. The sum from 1 to 10 is, and I'll do a console.write line, the sum 2. Next time I'll give you a little project on the for loop, for statement. But I didn't figure we'd have time today. Everybody to that point? Okay. Let's run it and just see what happens. Hopefully not an error. Bill, debug, start without debugging. Sum from 1 to 10 is 55. Sum from 1 to 10 is 55. Press any key. Now, before we start explaining what the code's doing, if I come to this 10 right here and change that to 10,000 and now run it, assuming it doesn't exceed the limits.
It will not run for me.
Yours doesn't run? Let me see what's...
You didn't.
You have a semicolon after your for statement. Get rid of that. There you go. Now run. That's weird. Cancel that. Do a debug. Start. Okay, there you go.
Now, if I change that to 10,000 and run it, that took me, what, 1 second to change? Now if I run that, do debug, start without debugging, it tells me the sum of numbers from 1 to, well, 10. I didn't update that, but from 1 to 10,000 is equal to whatever that number is. 50 million? 5,000? So that went through and added those in up quickly. Now I'm going to change it back to 10 so I can talk about this. This allows you, it loops over and over running that. There we go, Notepad. Okay, I enter my program. What does this line do right here? I got it highlighted in blue.
It tells us what the value of that variable is.
Right. So currently, the sum 2 is equal to 0, isn't it? Now it comes down here to my for loop. This initializes the value of x. It declares a variable called x and initializes it to 1. So at that point in time, x is equal to 1. Now this tells us how long we're going to continue. We're going to continue while x is less than or equal to 10. And then this tells us what we're going to do. And this says we're going to increase x by 1 each time. So my first pass through the loop, pass 1, x is equal to 1. Okay, so what's the value of sum 2? 0. And x is 1 currently, right? 0 plus 1 is 1, and then it assigns it to the sum 2. So the sum 2 is now equal to 1. Now after it finishes that, it comes back up here and does this for loop again. And at this point in time, it does the x plus plus, so it increases x by 1. So at this point, x is equal to 2. Now what's the value of the sum 2 at this point? 1. And what's the value of x? 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3. So it puts the new value there. And I'll only do one more pass. Pass 3. X is equal to 3. What's the old value of sum 2?
No, it's
3. Yeah. So it's 3 from right here. Now what's the value of x? 3. So from here. So then 3 plus 3 gives us 6. And it does that. It's kind of strange when you first see a for loop, a while loop, which we're going to look at hopefully next class. But they're
It goes through 10 times.
what?
It went through 10 times.
Going through 10 times. Yeah. Now you can have more control up here. Instead of increasing it by 1, you can do like x equals x plus 1. You might say, well, how's that different? It increases by 1, right? How about now? What do you think it's doing? Increasing by 2. So the first time through, we would have the number 1. And then next time through, what would x be? Increasing it by 2. It started off as 1. 3. How about the next pass? What would x be? 5. Now how about if I wanted to add up all the even numbers? What do you think I'd do? Yeah, so you'd change this to start off with 2, right? And have this increase by 2. So the first pass through, this would be 2. Next time through, we're adding 2. So what's this value going to be? 4. This one's going to be 6. and so on. You can do all kinds of bizarre calculations in here. You could do a times 5. It doesn't care. Now you have to be careful on this. Sometimes you screw it up and it never finishes. I don't know if this will let me do it, but let me try to write an infinite loop to demonstrate that. See if it crashes our computers. What do you think that'll do? Go down. So you start off with 2. Next pass through, it'll do 2 minus 1, which is 1. 1 minus 1, which is 0. 0 minus 1, which is negative 1, and so on. Will this condition ever be met? No, it'll always be less than or equal to 10. So it'll never kick out of my for loop, in theory. Let's just try to run this and see if it crashes the machine. Used to be a really crashy machine. Now it just kind of gives you different errors. And here it is running forever. This is never going to come back. And what I do? I don't know what I did. I think it came back, didn't it? What in the world? Debug. Start without debugging. The sum is negative 2.3 e plus 18. I never expected it to come back, to be honest. I have no clue why it did. It shouldn't have, yeah. Because that negative 2 times that is still less than or equal to 10, isn't it? So, interesting. My efforts of writing an infinite loop, it didn't work. Is there any questions on the for loop? We don't have time to get into it today, but within this for loop, what we're going to do next time is we're going to call a method. For example, if you want to convert temperatures from 1 to 500, from Fahrenheit to Celsius, well, you could have 500 lines where you're sitting there calling it 500 times, that method that we created earlier, or you could have a for loop where you're looping through. So we're going to merge the two together and see what is a benefit of the for loop besides adding numbers and multiplying them. We'll go ahead and stop there.